Good afternoon, WTU. Hope you're keeping as well as can be. In fact, I hope you're all better than me. I've just had a very quick update call with Robert. There hasn't been very much to update on. We're still waiting to hear back from the Secretary of State from the invitation to respond. It was anticipated that there wouldn't be a fast response, mainly because we have the COVID crisis that's going on, which is undoubtedly taking up a lot of politicians' times. Definitely the Secretary of State, that's for sure. So it was expected there would be some delays. But I'm happy to say that in this last week, Robert has had, well, it wasn't him personally, it was a junior colleague at the office, happened to be, because the offices are closed at the moment, but there happened to be a junior colleague at the office during the week, and he asked them to print off the hard copy again of the letter to respond and our attached evidence, so that now has been sent to the Secretary of State once again. So now, in essence, they've had it by email once, by post once, and now by post a second time. So Robert was basically asking me if we'd give him another week before he chases them up, rather than pursuing them relentlessly like we would like him to. I think because he understands the system and the game a bit more than we do in that way. We have to be a bit more polite and a bit less demanding, it feels. So Robert plans to give it one more week now they've had the second hard copy, and then he will be writing to them again to demand of them this time, more forcefully, their formal response to the WTU invitation to respond. In other words, our argument, what we've laid out. So it's anticipated that that will stimulate the response that we're after. Bear in mind that when we write to these people as individuals, it normally takes at least 3 to 4 weeks before they reply to us, and often a bit longer. And I suppose this time, as it's a solicitor firm writing to them and not just as people off the street sort of thing, they might actually be getting some legal advice themselves, which could also be delaying their response back to us. So that's where we are so far with that. I had a chance also to discuss with Robert the new sentencing guidelines. I'm not sure if you've seen them. I did share a post earlier in the week. It might be in the announcements. I also put into the files tab the actual proposed sentencing guidelines that the Drug Sentencing Council has come up with. I did point out to Robert, I found the numbers very interesting, as you'll see. I'm not sure if you've read the previous guidelines, but it used to be presumed by law if you had 9 plants and below, it would be a personal grow for non-commercial purposes. In other words, you're doing it for yourself. And an assumed yield of 40 grams per plant. Now, it seems that they've done some research. Now that's questionable itself, and they've decided or determined that because people are pulling more off their plants now, they're going to increase the assumed yield per plant to 55 grams of cannabis per plant. And on that basis, on the basis of harm prevention, they have reduced the number of plants for a personal grow from 9 to 7. So anyone with more than 7 plants will no longer be considered private. If it's 7 or less, it'd be considered a personal grow. But that's, what? They've taken off 2 plants, I've got 2 plants less. But if you actually look at the maths, they've given you an extra ounce. 25 grams actually, it's not quite a full ounce. It's a bit more of a European metric. They deal in 25 grams in Europe. So interestingly enough, 9 times 40 is 360. So previously, an allowance of 9 plants with 40 grams yield per plant, 360 grams assumed yield. Now, with an assumed yield of 55 grams per 7 plants, that's 385 grams assumed yield. So in effect, although they've reduced the plant total, they've increased the potential grammage, which, considering they're on about this is a harmful plant and they're doing this because of the harm, and I'll quote Arvon Jones here, who wrote recently in a comment on Philip Anthony Bevington's prosecution, where was the harm? Now, where is the harm exactly? Now, according to their guidelines, they've given us an extra 25 grams of harm each. Aren't we lucky? But it just shows they don't know their arse from their elbow. They just make these things up as they go along by the look of it. And looking at their informants, they had 2 members of the public give information that helped decide these sentencing guidelines. So my question is, because they haven't gone into action yet, how well publicised was this, because I don't recall hearing from it myself, and also if it isn't really well publicised, why is it the WTU survey of 629 people, or even more actually, 600, why hasn't that been taken into consideration? So Robert is connecting me with a barrister, a criminal law barrister. The barrister representing the WTU is more for public order, like the authorities. So this person's to do with criminal law. It'll be pro bono because they're friends, so they're just going to give us a bit of advice. And the idea will be they're going to try and help us see if there's a way that we can challenge this, or find any way to, do something about it. I don't quite know what. So I'll keep you posted on how that develops. I won't use the word unfortunately, because that doesn't quite give the right tone. I don't have a lot of time for campaigning, inconveniently, I don't know. I'm always with my daughter now, so not that I would argue and moan about that, because it's wonderful, we have a great time, I love it dearly. It means I don't have much time for the campaigning and the activist bit, which is why you don't see as much of me anymore, and I don't get to quite achieve as much as I was doing, but still doing what is possible in the background. There's something else I felt like I had to say that's on the bottom that I've written, but I can't remember what it was now. Bear with me a second while that try and comes back to me. Meanwhile, if you could just share the group as far as you can, invite your friends, go to the website, add your testimonial. If you want any of the WTU merchandise, such as the snuds, go to the merchandise page on the website and you'll find out the details on how you can obtain those. Really, it's about sharing what far and wide. I've had quite a few interviews this last week, well, quite a few. I think coming up for my fourth soon. Cannabis Health magazine, Weed World have just published today. Actually, that was very strange to see myself in Weed World magazine, and very scary. It's like ratchets up the fear straight away. So yeah, a bit more publicity for the WTU campaign. Nothing yet in quite the mainstream. We do now have Philip Anthony Bevington, Uncle Tony as I call him. He's now acting as a press liaison officer for the WTU. He's doing very well actually. He's been very persistent and doggedly determined to learn new skills and new tricks to be able to fulfil this role. And he has started hammering out the press release to various newspaper outlets. Unfortunately, of the 600 odd emails that the members of the community had actually gathered together for us, it seems maybe like 50% of them may well have expired for whatever reason. So about half of them seem to be bouncing back. But on the positive, that means half of them are bouncing through. So let's look for the positives in life and not the negatives. And we have had a few auto responses, confirmations that these newspapers are receiving the WTU press release. They are receiving the letters that we've sent to the Secretary of State. So it's a matter of time now until hopefully one of these newspapers will pick up our story. It's not that they don't know about us, I think, because they've heard about us and even made reference to us, but haven't quite written our story in full detail yet. And I think that's maybe because we are politically unpalatable. We don't want legalisation as such. We want decriminalisation and change of the law, but we're quite politically lying devious, and we want our lives back. We aren't putting any punches, and that's the difference. I think that's why the main media isn't giving WTU the attention that other groups are getting. They have a very narrow focus on medical cannabis rather than human rights, and that's just, I think, the significant difference. So hopefully we'll crack that egg, and we will eventually get the rest of the nation to know about the WTU. In the meantime, we have to advertise ourselves. So far, all the advertising companies that we've approached have refused because we have cannabis, and it's illegal, it's political, and all these sorts of excuses that they come back with. So we have to advertise ourselves, and that means us sharing our groups, inviting people to join. And I ask you, all of you, we've got 5,800, nearly 5,900 members now, if not 6,000. 6,000 members we should have. If all of you invited one friend, there'll be another 6,000 members. And so on, and so on, and so on. The same as well if you all write to your newspapers and your MPs and your local police, and just keep piling on the pressure, because that's the only way we'll ever get change. Some people say these letters don't do anything, none of them achieve change. Well, we have changed. The legal landscape with cannabis has changed significantly since 2018, and it will change again, I hope soon, because I'm sick and tired of this fight. I want my life back, but I can't. My life is the fight until it's over. So, on that note, I ask you, please share, tell your story, stand by your truth, get people to join, please. The pen is mightier than sword, I like to say. I can't barely lift a pen either nowadays, but I think we will overcome it just by telling our truth over and over again, and their lives will come to match. One of our members, Sarah Richards, she had a great reply from her MP, I think it was, asking why is it unlawful for people to self-medicate and grow their own cannabis. And it was very, actually, as the MP's responses go, it was quite a substantial response. It wasn't the usual photocopied crap. And in which they also made reference to the statement by Baroness Molly Meacher that denies our right to self-medicate, where they say that street cannabis or homegrown cannabis might be dangerous. So on that basis, they're going to destroy your life with a criminal record, which definitely is dangerous. So that's what we're arguing against. Robert's been very busy with lots of other businesses that are suffering. I'm not sure if you've seen the government, in their infinite wisdom and corruptness and greed, have decided that any business dealing with CBD now must have a Schedule 1 controlled drugs licence. They're just milking it, making money left, right and centre, and that's because it might have a negligible quantity of THC. They haven't even justified why the THC can't be in there, really. So that is, taking up his time because he's helping those businesses challenge that. And I think there's just lots of challenges going on here, there and everywhere, and hopefully all of these challenges will eventually bring down the government's house of cards once and for all. Right, I now have some questions to answer for Leafy magazine. They're the next one. So I shall go off and do those, and they will be published in mid-February. Go and have a look at Weed World magazine if you don't. They've published the WTU story. Also Cannabis Law Report, they published us last week, and Cannabis Health magazine, sign up to them and you'll get a copy of us through your door. I'm not sure when they publish, if it's quarterly or not. So yeah, keep pushing folks, keep getting the story out there, keep telling everyone about WTU, make us grow. Right, lots of love folks. On that note, I'm off. There's the off button.